Everyone, welcome to the uh, 13th
13.
meet of ACM SIGCHI Mumbai chapter. This is co-hosted by student chapter as well as the professional chapter of ACM SIGCHI IIT Bombay. Um, so we have two speakers today. Yeah, so the first speaker we'll be hearing from is Briju Thankachan. He is the director of curriculum and assessment design and improvement at Ohio University Heritage College of Osteopathic Medicine. He is a certified quality matters peer reviewer. Dr. Thankachan also designed online and hybrid courses for the School of Nursing at Ohio. In addition, he advises GS Gawande College in India with their technology integration needs. As an adjunct professor, he teaches advanced instructional design and tech applications in education at the Patton College of Education. In 2018, he served as president of the International Division of Association of Educational Communications and Technology, also known as AECT, and is a certified trainer in term-based learning. Over to you, Dr. Briju.
Thank you. Thank you, Malay, for the introduction. Let me share my screen real quick. Great. I just want to thank you, the organizing committee, Divya, Amit, and Deepak, for inviting me to this session, and it's an honor to be with you to share some of my, experiences with you. And when I was looking at the HCI, human-computer interaction, and I'm not that much a technical person. Okay, so I'm just trying to share some of the instructional design aspects, as I said in the descriptions, and the learning objectives. Okay, so hope everyone is fine. I know it's a difficult situations all over the world. But as I said earlier in the last session with the seminar, we will overcome this challenge. Okay, the season will pass. Okay, there is a new season will be coming. So, okay, let me tell a story about a student named Jodi. She was a high school student. She told her story with me. Her favorite subject was physics. In the 8th and 9th grade, she got the, full marks in physics. So she had a lot of dreams about become a career in physics. Then in the 11th standard, there is a new teacher came, and the teaching style was different. And, most of the time the teacher rushed to cover the content for the final exam. So then what happened, Jodi could not grasp the abstract concepts and the principles in the physics. So finally, she ended up in a different career, as a different subject in her career. Okay, so let me tell you one more story. An undergraduate student, Matt. He was born and brought up in a rural Appalachia, Ohio. His favorite subject, maths. So then he was very good in high school with maths, so he got an admission in a university in engineering. For his family, they spent all their savings to send their child to the university. He was the first, generation, hoping to graduate from a college. So he went to the college, very excited to start his engineering major. Then the class, it was a big class, more than 70 students in the classroom. then the instructor was speaking in very low voice, and then he almost started to write on the blackboard, not the learning management system, the real blackboard. Then most of the time the students had questioned, the instructor accent was different, so he could not understand what he was teaching. After 3 weeks, he dropped the course, then finally ended up could not finish his undergraduate degree. He's working as a support person. So I can see whenever I ask, this kind of a story, whenever I hear this story, we can hear this story. So let me ask this question about, if Jodi and Matt was in your class or a unit that you have designed, how do you help them? Okay, so just keep that thoughts in your mind. So that will be the start, the theme of this session. How can we help or improve the quality of instruction? So today's topics is about instructional decisions, how to help learners learn better. So, we make a lot of instructional decisions, right? So our main job is to help the learners learn better. So that's the title. And these are the session objectives. So we will be discussing briefly about the importance of quality of instruction in learning. Okay, so then we will also discuss about some of the elements in an instructional design, then some of the challenges and best practices in instructional design projects. Okay. So before we jump into the session, if you are using your laptop, take your mobile, then go to Socrative student login. If you are using your laptop, take your mobile, then go to Socrative student login. Just to Google it, Socrative student login. Then you will be asked to enter a code. So this is the code that you need to enter, 891574. Socrative, if you just Google it, Socrative student login, then you will be able to ask to enter a room name. The room name is 891574. Okay, I think I can see that. 10 students. Okay. Let me stop this. Okay, 13. Okay, stop share. Let me share. Okay, so I can see that. Okay, 13 students. So how do we do? Let's see, how are we doing now? Okay, yes, no, yes, no. Okay, let's see. Okay. Amit, can you see my screen, the chart graph? Okay, good. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's good. So most of them you heard about the term instructional design. Then some of them you never heard about. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Have you ever used any instructional design models like ADDIE in your projects? So let's see how we are doing this one. Yes, no, yes. Okay. Okay. I think that's good. Most of them you have never used any kind of a models, instructional design models in your design projects. Okay, great. So the next question I have, it's an open-ended question. I just want to hear, how do you describe the difference between education, teaching, and instruction? Okay, so this is the last question. So how do you describe what is education, what is teaching, and what is instruction? So these are very common terms that we usually hear, right? So how do you differentiate those three terms? Let's take maybe 2 minutes, since it's an, you need to type a little bit. Don't, just 1 or 2 sentences, and very good. I'm hearing very good things. Education is gaining ability to find, explore. Teaching and instructions come with umbrella of education. Teaching, yes. Instructions are is giving information. Learning focused on how they receive knowledge. Instruction is broad umbrella, and education is subset, and teaching even subset of that. Okay. Okay. Okay, maybe we'll meet 2 more. Let's see. Okay. Good. Okay, I think that's good. That's good. Okay, thank you for sharing your inputs. I know this is a abstract concept. We have sometimes subjective description, explanation about these terms. But let me come back to some of the definitions that I like, because since it's an instructional design, it's better to define what is instruction first. Okay. Stop share, then share again with my share. Current slide. Okay, we did. So we asked these questions. Great. So Smith and Reagan, that's one of the authors in our field. Smith and Reagan, they defined the education, teaching, and instruction to help us to think straight when we talk about instructional design. So education, it's all experiences in which people learn. Okay, it can both informal and formal. So that's kind of, I think some of you mentioned it's a broad term. Like if I put a circle, then that will be the outer circle kind of the education. All experiences. For example, if you want to learn how to drive in New York City, how do you learn? Or in Mumbai city, I never drove in Mumbai city. And, in each city, it has its own way of driving. And I remember one time I went to New York City and I lost 3 hours in the city because the GPS could not connect my, because of the tall building. I lost the signals. Then it was taking around the city 3 hours. So it can happen when you drive in big cities. So if you're living there for 6 months, then you will know, okay, where is the stop sign? Where is the bump? Where is the, turn left or right? Where is the traffic? You will automatically learn, right? No one was there to teach. So it's a within 6 months you will learn. But at the same time, so that's kind of an experience, like, informal and formal. So then teaching, it's kind of any human experience, like a learning experience that is facilitated by a human being. So then it's called, the teaching. For example, if one of my friend or a cousin in New York City, he's sitting in next to me and saying, hey, Briju, today is the first day of driving in New York City. This is the things you have to do. There will be a police cop over there, and there is, stop sign. Make sure, that's kind of a teaching, learning, or a driving school. You hired a driving school. So then that's kind of a teaching. Then the instruction is about all purposeful learning experience that facilitate learning. So you can learn how to drive in New York City in a video game. Sometimes, the car racing stuff, the simulation, like, okay, New York City, this is the Empire State Building, Statue of Liberty. They will create all the buildings, then all the real world kind of a ritual scenario. Then you can learn a driving in New York City as a instruction. So it can include both teaching and the simulated experience. Okay, so instruction is all purposeful learning. It's not only the performance of the instructor, but it's more than that. It's the instructional materials, the design, the game that you design, the interactivity that you design, all those things comes under the instruction. Okay, I hope that distinction is clear, like the education, teaching, and instruction. So if you want to look at that one, it's a Smith and Reagan, you can see that definition here. Okay, so let me come to the main first objective, is the quality of instruction and learning. Learning is a difficult subject. It's very complex. If you want to know about, there is a very good book about Make It Stick. It came from Harvard University. The Science of Successful Learning, very good book. I would recommend. So they, interviewed some of the best instructors in the world, and they are sharing some of their tips. It's called Make It Stick. Okay, you can read that. So in that one, it's still, there is no crystal ball how we can design a program that will help a learner 100%. Okay, the learning is very complex because human, it's complex. Okay. But there is a Harvard professor, John Carroll. He created a called Model of School Learning. It's very old book, but sometimes I do like the old publications. He wrote it in 1963 but I still like those factors. He kind of identified some of the factors that influence learning. Sorry, I'm not looking at the chat, Amit, or just if they have any questions, please keep it. Then I can stop later.
Sure.
The Dr. John Carroll, he identified several factors that influence learning. So I created kind of a modified version of his model to help us understand things. So first one, he's saying one of the main factors that influence learning is the aptitude. So basically the learning rate, the amount of time we'll need to learn a task, or ability to understand the nature of the learning task, verbal ability and comprehension. The aptitude of the student, it's very important. If you want to teach something, the aptitude of the student, it's very important. So that depends the learning. There are several factors, but I'm just listing some of the main factors that John Carroll identified. Okay. So then second one is the perseverance. Perseverance is how much time the learner is willing to spend on a learning task. Okay. So if you are going to teach one particular topic, then you created all these computer interactive programs, but the learner is not ready to spend time on to interact with the program. There is no use, right? So they don't learn. So that's the amount of time the learner is willing to spend is also important. So these two are internal to the learner. We cannot control actually. The aptitude and the perseverance we cannot control. Then the opportunity, let's say if you are the instructor, if you are designing a program, the computer-based program, so the opportunity, the amount of time allowed to learn the program. So that's very important. Okay, so how much time you allowed for learning. Then finally, he said the quality of instruction, another variable, okay, that affects the learning. It's the quality of instruction. So that's the performance of the instruction. That's the carefully planned, ordered presentation, explanation, examples, and the quality of the instructional material. So that's the quality of instruction. That's where the instructional design comes. Okay, so these are the external factors. So whenever we design a program, so always think about one of the variable that you can influence is the quality of instruction. Okay, so basically the instructional design, how you design the instruction, that will impact the learning. Okay. Okay, so keep your thoughts there, and if you have any questions, please post. We will come back to that one later. Okay, so that's why the first object, quality of instruction, it's very, very important in learning. Okay. So yeah, you can see Dr. John Carroll model of school learning. If you just Google it, you will be able to see that model of school learning articles. So then you can see the behind this model. So in order to help Jodi and Matt, I know one of the problem with Jodi and Matt, it was the quality of instruction. Do you agree with that? They had very good aptitude, right? They were very motivated. Physics and maths was their favorite subject. They were perseverance. They were, ready to spend hours, to learn about the concept. But what happened? The opportunity to learn and time allowed for learning and the quality of instruction was poor. So there are different factors. We can argue, the social, but I'm not arguing all those factors, but I'm just arguing about the quality of instruction could have been better. So this one as a model that I have developed, instructional decision model, kind of help the faculty, the teachers to have a roadmap when they design the instruction. So I kind of find the role of an instructor, especially with this information age. I think probably you are familiar with the information age terms like the industrial age, the industrial age kind of, the standardized learning was very more that, but now it's an information age, like a lot of team-based work and collaborative work in the work. So, for example, if you are working as a doctor, you will work with a nurse, then, different team members will work when you go to an operation theater, right? So in any field now you can see there are different people are joining together. So, okay, let me go back to the main point. So I believe the role of the instructor has changed now as a facilitator, not like a sage on the stage. Stage on the stage, just as an information giver. No, that's changed because everyone, when I'm talking about this instructional decision model, you might be Googling it. Hey, what is instructional decision model? The students will also do that one. So you don't have to give the information, you just be as a facilitator. So, as a teacher's role, it's kind of a moving students from A to B, from one destination to another, their knowledge and expertise. So let's say you are going from Mumbai to New York. Okay, you are taking your students from Mumbai to New York. So the first question, whenever we travel, where is the destination, right? Where are we going? Define the destination. So I call that is curriculum. Curriculum is what to teach, okay? Like in the content with the facts, concepts, principles, and rules, procedures, reactive skills, and interactive skills. So those are the content, what to teach. You have to make that destination very clear, okay? And even when you go to, say, New York, it's very broad. Are you going to New York State or are you going to New York City? You have to be very clear. Then also, if you're going to say New York City, okay, are you going to Empire State Building? Okay, so you have to be more very specific about the destination. Otherwise, you will lose your students. The students will get frustrated if you are not clear about where you are going. So most of the time, that's what happening. Students will really get frustrated. They say, okay, very broad kind of an objectives. Then, the PowerPoint presentation is different. Then there will be a YouTube. Then at the end, the assessment will be different. Okay. So that's kind of the problem. So always make sure you define the destination very clear. So the second one is the instruction. Instruction here, I call it how to teach. Okay. Decisions on how to teach. So, okay, we define the destination going to New York. So now the question is, how do we get there? What transportation? Are you going to fly or are you going to walk? Or are you going to take a ship? So what are the instructional materials, learning activities? Are you going to do a flipped classroom pedagogy? I think nowadays, it's very common, the flipped classroom. Or are you going to use, the team-based learning, peer instruction, or different methods like online learning or hybrid or face-to-face, all those things comes under like how to teach kind of, that question. Then the final one is the assessment. Like how to assess the learner's performance, like the formative assessment and the summative assessment. And, or how do we know we have reached the destination? For example, you said, okay, you took your students to New York City, then they came back to Mumbai. Then if someone asking a question, so how many stories in Empire State Building, if they don't know about that one, that means, the learning process was not good. Or who was the architect of the Empire State Building? Or how do you compare Empire State Building and Statue of Liberty? Can you describe? So many times, so that's the way you assess. How do you know you reached the destination? So then, if you ask some questions about Chicago, okay, you went to New York, then you cannot ask any questions about Chicago. Many times we say, okay, it's New York, sorry, US, so we can ask any questions about Chicago, So that should not, that we should not do. Whenever we do a design and instruction, we have to be very clear about where is the destination, define the destination. Then think about how do we get there and the assessment. It's kind of called the backward design. Probably you might have heard about the term backward design. Whenever we design an instruction, so, we can use. So it's more aligned, the curriculum, instruction and assessment. So in instructional design, it's very important, like how you align this curriculum, where are you going, the destination or the learning objectives or the instructional materials that you are using, like for example, what book chapters, journal articles, that you are using. Then the assessment, how do you assess? So that's very important. And even in your projects also, when you design your own human-computer interaction, that's kind of a project, small project, just think about this alignment piece. What is the destination? How do we get there? And how do we assess? So that's very important. Okay, I think that's the second objectives I want to share. And let me stop there. Does anyone have any questions now about these two ideas? So maybe I can spend maybe 5 minutes up here, then before I jump into the next last objectives.
I have a question regarding the quality of instruction slide that you showed.
Okay.
The question is about what are some of the negotiation strategies considering different scenarios of the student. For example, the student has a wonderful aptitude and very less time, and how if you're designing instructions for that child versus somebody has a little aptitude but a lot of time and designing instruction for that child. So is there any strategies that experts follow to do that?
Okay. Actually, that's one of the challenges I was going to list in the personalized learning, and also the having a mentor or a coach for a learning. I believe, having a mentor or a coach, like for a project, it's very important. But in a standardized educational system, again coming back to the points that I discussed, since we need to finish our degrees in 4 years, right? You are BTech or MTech, you need to finish in 2 years, so you cannot spend too much time on that one. So there are challenges, systemic challenge that we cannot address. But I do strongly believe, because of this more like the computer personalized learning, the learning management system, nowadays we can get more data from the learners, like how many times they are clicking. And I think probably you will be doing those kind of a research, how many times they are spending on one module, how many times they watched, where they are clicking. All those data might inform the instructor in the early stages. So then also the adaptive release, like in the learning management system, you can put the adaptive release and stuff. Those kind of stuff, I think, might help to help the learner. Like, you have to finish this part first, then go to the next one. Things like that might be, with the technology, we will be able to help. Even though the student learner has a high aptitude but less time, that some of the strategies that you can do that one. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Good. Okay. So let me go back to the final session about. I will just list some of the challenges. Again, the universal design for learning. I don't know how many of you have heard about the term UDL, like the, including all students. I think that might be relevant to the questions that we asked. Like, how do we, some students, they have the color blind, or some students, they have reading difficulties. Some students, they are very good. There are different. So think about the universal design for learning. It's kind of a challenge, and also best practices, okay? So to include those universal design learning principles when you design an online learning. Then the second one is the untrustable professional activities, especially in the medical here in the United States. It's more like a competency-based education. Like, when you write a learning objectives, you need to add, you should have an action verb, and then content reference, and also the level of achievement, like how well, how much time to finish this procedure, this surgery, if you have, different clinical scenarios. So I think those, it's kind of coming up very much in the competency-based education or the EPA. It's also again as a challenge and also an opportunity. So to help the learner to get, you can take the students at the end of the day, a student is coming out from your program, you can say they have that 80% or 90% have the knowledge and skill to do this particular task, okay? Then the institutional infrastructure, it's another things, it's a challenge and also an opportunities. Sometimes, when you design a program, you have to work with the graphic designer, web person, then, the IT support specialist. Then, then if it's a very big online program, like the program that I was working, it was a nursing program. We had around 6,000 online nursing students. Then the teaching assistants were all over the US, and the faculty were all over the US, connecting with them, meeting, and it was every 5 weeks, the program was deploying every 5 weeks. You have to make sure all the links, it's working. Then if one link is not working, then you will get thousands of emails. Then you will spend all night to reply the emails. So there are a lot of challenges, when it comes to online. But at the same time, if you have good support from the IT support, I had a very good IT support person, who helped with, he was very detailed oriented. So those, kind of are the challenges. And again, guided practice with mentor or a coach, as I said earlier, like a personalized learning. That also helps. That then faculty or the subject matter experts readiness. Sometimes when you work with the subject matter, many times they don't accept what the principles that you are talking. They say, hey, I have 30 years of experience in this content. Who are you to talk to me how to teach? So sometimes it's very difficult. It's true. Like, they are the expert in the content, but many times, the students are changed. You cannot use the old principles now in this, they will still might be using 10 years old, 15 years old PowerPoint, still teaching the same thing. But students, as I said earlier, students will be looking at in their Google, like what is the latest things. So then that's another challenge. Then another things you have to skill, like to have the project management skills that I didn't know. When I was graduated from my program, Instructional Technology, I didn't know that I need too much project management skill. I think that's true in your field also. Then the interpersonal skills or people skill, that's also another important. And I would also recommend kind of creating some kind of a template. It will also help. I will show you one example later. Then simplify the complex concepts. Sometimes you need to simplify the concepts into different people. When you first say what is universal design for learning or backward design or the Bloom's taxonomy, they might, what is that? We never heard about this one. So sometimes you need to simplify the concept to different people in different ways. That's things. And also create some templates. And this is one thing I have created for the faculty, like a Bloom's taxonomy, like, especially it's very important in instructional design, Bloom's taxonomy, like the 6 levels, like the knowledge and the comprehension, what are the actions, verb that are using. Then try to show some examples, like, for example, how it's different from the list the steps in CPR, define CPR, it's kind of a recall information. Then describe rescue breathing, it's kind of a comprehension. Then when you go to the application analysis and synthesis, it's kind of higher levels of learning. Then, again, the same CPR is the topic that you are teaching. Then here, when it comes to analysis stage, compare child CPR and adult CPR, or distinguish between chest compression and rescue breathing. See, you see the difference. So then it's more into evaluate a CPR procedure, like a making judgment based on given. So I create these kind of templates, to help the person. So I think I took too much time, maybe. I think let me stop there. In summary, I think discuss the importance of quality of instruction. I think you got a good grasp about what is the quality of instruction in learning. Then the effective elements of an effective instructional design, the curriculum, instruction, and the assessment. Then finally, some of the challenges in best practices. And let me stop with this quote. Most students, perhaps over 90%, can master what we have to teach them. And it is the task of instruction to find the means which will enable our students to master the subject under consideration. This is a quote from Benjamin Bloom. He is the one who created the Bloom's taxonomy. He says, if there is 100 students in your class, 5 students will be cream of the class. Even if you don't teach anything, they will learn. Okay, they don't need any instructor. Then 5 students out of 100, 5 students, even if you teach the best instruction in the world, they don't learn. Okay, there might be some issues. So then our focus will be the 90 students, 90%. Okay, so as an instructional design, whenever you design an instruction, think about the 90%, how you can move the 90% of the students from destination A to destination B. When they reach the destination, when you do the evaluation, will they be able to, do they have the knowledge and skill that you were intended to teach? Okay, so thank you. And this is my email. And if you have any questions, please email me. And once again, thank you for this opportunity. And I can spend some time for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Briju. There are some questions in the chat if you can pull it up. Else I can iterate as well.
Yes, or maybe you can ask Rohan, who asked the questions.
Yeah, sure. Hi.
Hello.
So, right. Just to give a bit of background in terms of where these questions are coming from. So I was a student until recently at IDC in the dual degree program. And I'd worked with Deepak, who asked you the earlier question on some of his PhD work with low-cost primary schools around Maharashtra. So, I mean, so the question wants to start from there, but I see that you work with, I think, maybe a college level audience for a lot of your work. But I still think some of the, I mean, the general questions in the field are still quite relevant. So the first question I had was particularly on, I mean, to deal with curriculum setting, because at least in the primary school space, there's a lot of debate about, whether a topic is important for a child to learn at this particular age. So in some cases, it is justified by development needs. But otherwise, if you look at the history or geography that children learn, then it tends to become a little irrelevant, looking at how things are progressing today. But do instruction designers engage with curriculum setting at any point?
Well, some all these driving forces are the accreditors, the other people kind of drive the curriculum setting than the instructional designers. So usually the instructional designers comes to usually at the module level or the course level, not the broad level. Like for example, in the example I'm saying, the accreditors are looking for where is the direction, like we are going to New York. So they just need that part actually. For, the primary school students, do they know the basic, maths, kind of simple direction. So that's what they are looking. But at the same time, I do believe that as a primary school teacher or the local level who is teaching, who is giving a 1 hour lecture or a 14 minutes session, still has the importance of, to define or clearly define that, the learning objectives, help them to the questions they ask. I know for each, for example, the CPR that you teach to the high school students, it will be different to teaching to the medical school students, right? But it's the same topic, right? The level, the depth will go more to the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So I think that when you design that instruction, if you, in the primary level settings, I think still has the, if you know that concept, okay, we are focusing on the lower level, that might help. Did I answer the question or no?
Yeah, I mean, it does in some ways, but yeah, it leads up to more discussion going into, I mean, how to convert a curriculum into, I mean, something that you can take action on. But it sort of leads up to my next question, which was, so with the little that I have read, without having attended a formal course, it seems like a lot of the methods are in some ways already established, or they've been this old, and people are coming up with new ways of implementing them. So I just wanted to get an understanding of, I mean, from your view, how do you see innovation taking place in this field?
You mean in the instructional design or?
Yeah, in terms of, I mean, if you were to say trying out new things in instructional design, I mean, what exactly does that mean?
Okay, so that one, it's more the innovation, it's kind of coming to the personalized learning, actually, the innovations, as I said earlier, like more and more learning management system is able to capture a lot of information from the learner. Actually, I didn't take too much time. The analysis part, it's very key. If you, the analysis, the learner analysis, how much, if you know the learner, then you can deliver the instruction much better. So I think the it's more coming towards the learner analysis based on that. And also another innovation is coming, I'm hearing more like the just-in-time instruction. So it's adapt, while you are getting a lecture, so getting the feedback, then immediately changing the course, those kind of innovation. Yeah. So those
are
the
looking at the other quadrants in that model. The aptitude and the other quadrants that you mentioned in that model.
Aptitude and perseverance. Yes. Those are the, the internal factors. I think we don't have that much control. And maybe for the perseverance, I think I don't have that much, experience on the motivation part. Like, I think perseverance can change, the amount of time the learner is spending based on the motivation. I think might be a link with that one, but I don't have that much background in that part. I think I do see a innovation in that perseverance, especially, even though the aptitude also can have, but yeah, I think motivation in the program that you design, motivating the learner, yes, I think that can also, there might be an impact. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. I'll leave it open to other people to ask questions. But I mean, again, it's always nice to have people coming in from the industry, because you get to hear about cases. So if there's time, it would be great if you could share some of those with us as well.
Sure. Thank you, Rohan. Yes.
Do we have more questions? Orko, Pratiti? So I have a question. I am posting on the chat as well. That is like more like a observation than a, on which I would like your opinion than a question. It's about the you talked about universal design language for instructions. Um, so in such situations, we see that there is a disparity between resources and access to resources as well, like accessing content. So so this comes from my brother's university. He studies law, whatever. But so there are a group of students who are receiving education for the first time in their family, not first time college goers, but receiving education for the first time in family, and they don't have resources like internet, and they live in such a space where internet is not present. In such a situation, um, I was wondering about the validity of the notion of universal design language, like how how uh, how intact can it be? Where is the universality, because universality also includes equality, right? So how does one navigate this situation?
You know, uh, it's um, it's a challenge, and yeah, it's a challenge. You know, to have that's why I put that one in the challenge as you know, it's the accessibility. You know, that we sometimes we call the digital divide. You know, the haves and have-nots. You know, some of the sections of the. Actually, I work in one of the college in Maharashtra, Umarkhed. It's called GSG College, Umarkhed. It's a rural community college. I've been working with them more than 6 years. Almost every summer, I visit that college almost every summer. Then train the faculty, and the students are coming from the farmers, and there are a lot of farmers suicide in that region. And when I introduce the Gmail or Google Classroom, and I think right now, in the COVID situation, we are having, different talking with the faculty and how can help the students, to deliver the content. And I think that the faculty, they are very innovative ways, like they are creating the WhatsApp group and recording, the YouTube videos, downloading and offline. So yeah, it's a challenge, but I think we can provide the 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 universal, more accessibility to the resources in different ways. And I do see that the challenges also make us to think in a creative way. Like even before even there is no internet or nothing, in the traditional classroom, still some of our teachers, they helped us, right? When we didn't understand a concept, after the class, they spent some time to discuss, or they handed us a textbook or an extra book or some notebooks. So, the instructors helped us to help those situations, even there was no internet. I'm talking about in the 90s, those times when we didn't have this kind of technology, but still some instructors who cared us, right? That's why we are here. And they spend extra time to explain the concept. And sometimes, the learner was, I remember time that I didn't understand some of the maths. And one of my, teacher helped me to do an extra mile, walk with me in that process. So I think again, I do think there is a, the quality of the instructor has a role in that one. So that's one of another motivation. I just want to give the importance of, the quality of instruction is very important. Yes, maybe I just gave a broad answer, not specific, but yeah, that's my comment.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr.
Malay, I have a question if there is some time.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Briju, for that presentation. So I'm not from this background, not from instructional design background. So I'm not sure about the validity of my question. So the first thing is, can we apply the instructional design framework for skill-based learning? Like suppose I want to learn carpentry or something like that, where the tool or the task is not very specific, but I'm more interested in learning about the field in general. So can these frameworks or these methods be applied there? I mean, yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's very great questions. Actually, if you go deeper, I know I do teach the instructional design. We call it's the topic analysis and the procedure analysis. Or you can divide the learning into 3 domains, like the knowledge domain, psychomotor domain, and the affective domain. The knowledge domain, it's like the how do you use your mind, okay? So then the psychomotor domain, it's like more like how do you use your physical body, like carpentry example. But at the same time, so you need to have the coordination, okay? You need to calculate, right? How much the length and width and stuff, it's there, but it's more towards, the physical things. So then the affective domain, it's dealing with interaction. How do you deal with yourself and how do you deal with others? The kind of the professionalism, like, that part. Knowledge, skills, and attitude. Probably you might have heard that terms, knowledge, skills, and attitude. So when you design a course, always focus on, what is the focus? Are you focusing more on the knowledge part or are you focusing on the skill part? So if you are in the example of carpentry, you will be focusing on more on the skill part. So then you will do a procedure and analysis, like what are the steps students will be doing? Then what knowledge is needed to do these steps? Then what are the cues? Let's say, what if something wrong? How do you direct the learner? Like he or she did a mistake about this one. So there are some kind of a procedure, it's called procedure analysis in instructional design. So once you do the procedure analysis, then you can design the instruction. Then also you can think about what are the crucial steps that the students cannot miss. When you teach a carpentry or how to make a table, there are some crucial steps, right? It's not only taking the length of the wood plank, but there are some crucial steps. Where do you screw, right? You cannot screw upside down. There are some crucial steps are there. So you analyze those crucial steps, then focus on that. How can I teach that particular crucial steps? What methods I can use? Then, there are different things like the generative strategies or the initial strategies. When you give a topic to a student, when you teach a student, how do you teach an abstract concept and a concrete concept? I don't know whether you are familiar. Again, I can go much deeper. Abstract concept is like a peace, joy. It's all abstract concept, okay? You cannot really, it's not concrete, but there are some concrete concepts. So there are different strategies that you can use when you teach abstract concepts and the concrete concept, and the different strategies. How do you present the material? Then how do you create the generative strategies? Do you want to go more? Or one I can give?
Maybe later.
Sometimes some faculty, they do give the example first, then they will tell the rule, right? Okay, this is the example and this is the rule. Okay. So sometimes they give the rules first, then the example. Okay. So what you can do as a generative strategy, you will ask the students to, based on the example, ask them to create the rule. That's kind of a generative strategy, so that it will stick more in their mind. Yeah, there are different ways you can, strategies that we can use.
Thank you. Malay, you are muted.
Yeah. I just realized it. Right. So if there are more questions, you can personally contact Dr. Briju here on Zoom chat, or there is an email ID. You can contact him. We'll proceed with the session and have Tanmay Shah from Imaginarium for the next speaker.